stuck the landing.
You got us closer to the ground. It's a start.
Enough chit-chat. Let's find that goddamn...
And welcome back to the Revenge of the Demon Bunny. It's a pretty cool feature that I tended to gloss over in most of the times you encountered it so far, so here's one more for good measure. Goodbye, Demon Bunny. Last time we got reunited with Hoji and talked him out of his sudden stroke of conscience. Now we're back on Earth, it's time to kick ass, take names and chop shit up, not necessarily in that order. This is the last standard level of the game and it's an amazing one. Right from the start we can take in the environment. We're back in the Japanese-themed residential area of Zell's castle and pleasantly reminded of Chapter 1. The impression this place makes is that we've come full circle and it will become even more evident a bit later on. This impression is further reinforced by the rather laughable difficulty of the fight presented here. The cat agrees. Okay, that wasn't intentional. Point is, this is a real simple and really fast fight, making you feel like you're making a lot of progress. A bunch of this level's battles are designed in a way that allows you to simply blaze through them if you know what you're doing, and I'll be showing off a bit of it.
We need to head for that building.
We're fighting possessed Yakuza again, and at no point they are a threat. This, by the way, holds true even for the higher difficulties. Basically, the game throwing demonically possessed Japanese moves at you is its way of telling you to enjoy yourself. Before I forget, I switched to the default katana here because we're pretty much back to serious mode now. Also, I recently acquired a copy of the remake of the Rise of the Triad and it's kind of shit. Not a bad game, but definitely something that didn't live up to its potential. It does make a pretty interesting contrast to Shadow Warrior though, because that game is a very literal remake. Right, back on topic. The Yakuza B-team and pretty much all the other human battles in this game are essentially joke fights. They're there to let you unwind, relax and refill your health by means of ass-wanging. They are only really dangerous at the beginning of the game, when Wang doesn't have access to his armor yet. And that's a fairly interesting fact when you consider that they are this game's only hitscan enemy. Anyway, I am buying the Laser Guidance upgrade for the rocket launcher. It works pretty much the same way as it does in all the other games where it is. Starting with, I think, Half-Life 1. You hold the right mouse button, it projects a little red dot, and the rockets follow the dot anywhere. Now, what I was about to say about hitscan enemies. Modern FPS games are chock full of them. Having hitscan enemies is what mainly reinforces cover-based gameplay, which makes shooters realistic, which makes shooters desirable, which makes shooters sell. Also, which makes them, in my opinion, really fucking boring. I'm fairly sure I've confessed my love for Doom more than enough times, both in videos and in the thread during this LP, but it's still something that, in my opinion, bears repeating. Projectiles. Having attacks you can actually dance your way through adds a completely new dimension to an action game's gameplay. Mind you, the same is true for hitscan weapons. And they definitely have their place, hell, even Doom has a couple of them. But Shadow Warrior 2013 is very clear and decisive on what it wants, what kind of enemies to do. You know, the Yakuza mooks with SMGs are simply there to whittle down your health, while you can't do anything about it. They're essentially a timer, while the other enemies actually require you to devise a strategy to deal with them. Especially when the large enemies are around and in some combinations. It may sound real trivial, but I believe there is a point to be made here. Shadow Warrior's bestiary is really well done. This game, and Doom, as a matter of fact, are what I would immediately point at examples of amazing FPS enemy design. This is how you do different enemies with a lot of variety in attacks and strategies required in order to overcome them. It's not just about having 5 colors of fireballs flying at you. It's not just about having a token melee guy, a token ranged guy, and a token guy that has a special ability. It's about making them click together. And when they do click together, you can use that to make extremely elaborate traps and challenges. And now I realized I spent the entirety of this fight talking about the next fight. Oh well. Now we actually find ourselves in the reused area from Chapter 14. It's a well done area. The fact that the assets are reused doesn't really strike the player because it doesn't look the same. The time of day has changed, the lighting has changed, the enemies have changed. But there is one more thing that changed, and that's kind of annoying.
Blew up the floor in the castle. We need to find a way around.
This level has 4 secrets. It is the least in the game, barring boss levels, and yes, this time I got it right. And one of them is in this courtyard. The problem is, it is behind a door that was not a door when you were here in Chapter 14. It also happens to be a door that, thanks to the layout and the ways of getting around the courtyard, you're not likely to ever notice without actively looking for it. Long story short, I have problems finding this place even when I remember it, played it on a practice run, and have the location fucking written down. Then again, unless you are aiming at a 100% secret run, there is very little need to collect anything at this point. If you do not have an upgrade by now, chances are you're not getting it. Until New Game Plus, that is. Now this little area has one of those intricate fights I was trying to talk up during the last battle. It starts on a cue I'm just about to miss. Yep, premature discharge. Happens a lot. A warlord walks around the corner and opens fire. And right after it follows a crew of shield jerks and skeletons, who actually happen to be kind of annoying in this place. There's nowhere to dodge, there's nowhere to hide, and blasting through is not an option if there's a shield jerk in bad position. What's worse, you actually really want to get near that warlord. But the enemy composition here is chosen specifically not to let you. Now, here's why you want to stand in the place I am standing while obliterating the rest of these enemies. The second wave of this fight consists of ranged Harridans, and those are notoriously annoying to hunt down and kill. They do, however, all come through one door, and if you manage to point a demon head or a well-timed rocket blast at that door, you'll save yourself a lot of trouble, and on hard difficulties a lot of dying. I think there's about 8 or 10 Harridans in total, and hunting them down in this arena with its vertical differences and a lot of cover would be a matter for at least a few minutes, unless you manage to catch them at the entrance. Now the third wave consists of flyers, and it deserves at least an honorable mention because this is very likely to off you on a higher difficulty where flyers actually do damage. Getting this fight right actually took me a couple of runs, not because of dying, but because it just took way too long. And because it actually is kind of difficult to force yourself through the crowd of shield jerks and skeletons in order to be at the right place at the right time. Especially since such place happens to be in a pile of explosive barrels.
I think we can get there through the rooftops.
Getting flashbacks to back when we first met Hoji, how Wang decided that the smartest way to enter a burning building is through the roof. How we took pretty much the same path, using a scaffolding in order to reach the roof of a wooden Japanese castle. This whole section is a little nostalgia trip. Of course, I could also blabber on how the change from grass to snow means the passage of time and on and on. But hey, we got a fight to deal with. This is another one of those purely for fun ones, where fighting Yakuza and warlords together. Thing is, although I'm fairly sure someone will correct me on this if I'm wrong, and I still can, but as far as I can tell, Yakuza don't enrage. Or if they do, it's on the pathetic side. It's also kind of interesting to note that we are fighting humans and demons together now. And even the fact that they don't work together too well is kind of telling.
Sometimes it's only madness that makes us what we are.
And this is a very interesting quote, and almost feels like something Hoji would say. Or maybe not say, but think. And maybe not even think, but act upon. Following is a little platforming section, but since there's no real threat here and you're not over a bottomless pit, as a matter of fact I think all of the falls you can make here can be actually negated by the ninja roll, it's kind of relaxing, really. This level actually works with the player tension really well, and the whole careful alternation between big fights and little wind-up periods in which you platform, explore and collect actually works really well on the higher difficulties, where literally every single one of these fights, except maybe for the Yakuza at the beginning, can kill you in some way. And I mean reliably, not just the player's brain short-circuiting. Which happens to all of us. The best of us. Okay, it happens to me. Case in point, this is a small, non-flashy chamber battle. And you're dead if an enraged Harridan creeps up on you. Because the moment you're tied up dealing with one, two more will usually jump you from behind, again. On normal it's not that bad if you manage to kill the melee ones first. But even the ranged ones have an annoying tendency to just run away and hide from you. And then pop up at the worst possible moment. I've actually been killed here before just by standing near an explosive barrels and thinking I got all of them already. As I said, mental short circuits, it happens to most of us. And what would a late game level be without eggs? The next room is actually fairly amusing, because it's like they really had to put at least one mother ambush somewhere in there, but they simply didn't have the terrain for it. So they just shamble from around the corner and stare at you menacingly.
Make it right. Have to make it right. What? We need to do something. I will not have the Shadow Realm ruled by Enra. We will not have it.
Are you alright?
No, but I'm gonna be.
Do I sense a master plan in hatching? Or is it just Hoji being clueless and helpless about what he's supposed to do next? I'm honestly not sure whether I'd consider either part of our dynamic duo even remotely capable of planning or thinking up something that doesn't end up in a completely horrible... Ooh, pretty.
Wow.
Hypothetical ladies and self-styled gentlemen. Zilla's Castle. Did I mention this is a really good-looking game? And I'm reasonably certain this guy is just lost. Those gentlemen in the distance, on the other hand, mean business. A little tip here. There is a series of Steam achievements called Hell on Earth that's awarded for killing 10 enemies with one shot. This is, in my opinion, the best place in the game to get it. It does, however, require a bit of setup, because killing 10 guys with the damage from one shot and not, say, the fiery aftermath of an explosion is not as simple as it looks or sounds.
My own place up in the mountains. Just me and a few thousand enemies.
A pretty good way to do it is just to wait until all the Yakuza spawn, then lead them to about halfway up the bridge and start shockwaving or fluxing them so they fall over and stay in place. Once you get a large enough pile of soon-to-be corpses, feel free to blast away. Also, if you happened to believe that Lowang is not a bit on the psychotic side, you should probably reconsider your opinion after having heard his retirement plan here. There are 2 more layers of defense we need to breach before we reach Zilla, but first let's get some secrets. The last 3 secrets of the game are in this area, and 2 of them are a bit nightmare-inducing. In order to reach this one, you need to walk over the railing. Over an endless abyss. This one is definitely a kung fu movie joke, but I can't really place it anywhere, not being a fan of the genre and all. And the last one requires a bit of good old jumping over bottomless pits. There, all 106 secrets of the game are collected now. What a fucking waste of time. Now, as I was saying, there's only 2 hurdles before we reach Zilla, and one of them is the biggest battle in the game that will take up most of the rest of this video. This is not it. As a matter of fact, the most dangerous thing awaiting us in this battle right here and right now is simply falling off. Again, we get Yakuza and demons. Again, they don't work together in the slightest, which in my opinion has to be intentional, because the interactions between various enemy types were given a lot of thought in this game. Still, probably the thing making this fight easiest is the fact that there are no large enemies. That's not to say it doesn't feel suitably epic or climactic, mind you. After all, we are fighting above the clouds of a floating island.
Look at that. Meet piñatas.
Which you can drop off with one misplaced dash, but that's another story. And the whole setting again plays on the contrast between the beautiful, tranquil environment and the horrible murder we are constantly delivering. Still, this fight is really just a warm-up, and should be treated as such. The worst enemy you have here is literally yourself, because those platforms are actually a lot smaller than they look, and you will often, thanks to the abundance of ranged enemies, be tempted to dash in order to just make this thing go by faster. The problem is that you miscalculate or happen to hit some sort of elevation and Wang flies off. Now, after a reasonably certain you murdered everything in the vicinity, as I will be once I dealt with that pesky birdman, and the battle over screen still doesn't show up, it's because there's a Yakuza hiding, probably literally cowering, in one of the houses on the upper level. And leave it to me to pick the wrong one. Eggs, by the way, don't count, you can end a battle with them still being around. Now, you've noticed the key shrine here, and I'm going to tell you that there are 3 key shrines we need to get to Zell's castle, and they are all about 5 meters from one another. It looks like stupid padding. I believe there is a reason for it. After all, this area has 3 of these levels for secrets, and I think the key shrines are a little nudge in order to push you towards exploring. That man is a ninja.
That's what I call controlling the shadows.
See, even Wang agrees. Anyway, as I was saying, I believe the key shrines are there to entice you into exploring the place, as a way of telling you that this is some sort of a hallmark. This is a checkpoint. After this, there is only pain and the gritting of teeth. Grinding of teeth? Something with teeth. And crying, I think. Okay, so key shrine wrap up, weapons check up. Look at the big ass door. And pray. This arena hosts the biggest and hardest battle in the game. That is legitimately hardest. I still think the berserkers in the elevator room are more annoying. Thing is, this place wants you to fight against your instincts. First wave, berserkers and mothers. There are 2 berserkers and about 4 or 5 of those explosive green shits. Thing is, against anything you've ever learned about fighting berserkers, you need to kill the mothers first. I don't think you encounter this particular enemy combination anywhere else in the game, and thank God for that. Thing is, both berserkers and mothers are extreme damage dealers, but berserkers can be worked around much easier. A berserker won't sneak up on you, it's loud, it's annoying, sure, it's fast, sure, but it's big, you can see it coming and you can dodge it. A mother is much more inconspicuous and subtle. I've seen the mad dash for the medkits, and I will admit openly that I have the location of all the medkits in this arena memorized. Thing is, there are really only 3 which you can access anytime you want. There are 2 more on the other side from where you start, but getting towards those is a bit of a problem, because for one, you can't do it when there's a berserker around. Since there are narrow passageways, the berserkers will completely block. Now, after the mother demons are dead, it's just a pair of berserkers battle, which in its own is one of the more challenging things the game can throw at you, and is definitely not helped by the barren and coverless environment. Now, way back in chapter 5, I had a bit of a Freudian slip where I called the final arena of that level the final arena of the game. I was thinking of this fight. Turns out that the layout of those 2 locations is identical, and they have the same way of luring you into thinking that the statues in the middle provide some sort of meaningful cover. Interestingly enough, they don't. Now, whenever we fought berserkers before, we had some kind of obstacles in order to hide behind them and potentially stop their charges. There were trees, there were boxes. Hell, even the fucking elevator had some real walls. Nothing like that here. They can even maneuver around the trees. Really, the only thing working in our favor here is the fact that they don't usually charge at once, thus giving us the option of using one berserker as a cover from the other one. Theoretically, that is. Practically, most of this fight consists of madly dashing for your life and looking out for every single attack opportunity you get that won't get you murdered. There's simply no time to think about strategy here. Thankfully, as is always the case with this enemy, the fight only lasts until you kill one of them. The second berserker essentially becomes a cakewalk to deal with. And the poor dear is very easily locked into a situation from which there is no return. Like right now, for example, when I am about to lock him in a slam attack pattern, which is achieved simply by getting in front of him, then dashing twice. You'll be hurt somewhat, but it's much better than actually letting the fucker move. Right, second wave. Wave 2 is a breather. I keep mentioning Blood Hell in connection with some kinds of enemies, namely Bergman and Shield Jerks, and this wave is why. This is them at their finest. Projectile warfare, fireballs everywhere, you get slowed, you get confused, and you'll get a couple of crawlers to block you now and then. This is by far the easiest way to this fight and is best used as a means of recharging your health by just whipping up your katana and swinging the fuck out of them. This wave is actually kind of interesting in that it essentially serves its purpose by dying, because these enemies will show up again and they will be much more difficult to deal with. The second wave also provides you with the best opportunity to actually get to these supplies hidden near the whole temple/castle structure we are headed towards. And there's actually a medkit there, so it's kind of worth it. Generally, this wave is of no threat at all, as long as you keep moving, which is what you should be doing anyway. Wave 3, Shield Jerks and Harridans. Now this one is bad. Melee Harridans are the most damaging small enemy in the game, and here they come pretty enraged. I think it has something to do with fighting in the same place, so this counts as the same fight, so you keep your score of whatever it is that makes demons pissed off. Another little twist on this fight is that the Shield Jerks spawn right in your face. Now, this doesn't really confer any kind of advantage to them, since they are a purely ranged enemy. It does, however, severely hamper your movement, and that's a bad thing, because in order to deal with Harridans, you have to dash around a lot. And it's kind of difficult to dash around a lot when there's a Shield Jerk in your face, whenever you try to. The best advice I can give you for this wave is keep your head. Literally. The demon head tears through Shield Jerks like no other weapon. And if there ever was a time to use it, this is it. After a couple of seconds of panic, followed by a couple of seconds of slaughter, you'll probably be left with a couple of ranged Harridans running around and not doing much damage. This is when you take a breather and go resupply. And this is when more enemies start pouring in. You can tell wave 4 is special because it comes with a loading. 2 warlords, 2 shamans and a berserker. The kill potential of this combination is insane. If a warlord grips you and berserker charges you, you're dead pretty much no matter what difficulty. And again, beating this actually requires you to act against your better judgment and instincts. Screw the berserker, you need to kill the warlords. They are the ones with the immobilizing attack, and that's what kills you in the end. Now, while you're doing all this, dodging the berserker, trying to get hits on warlords, those 2 shamans are doing their damn best to summon the best of what waves 2 and 3 had to offer. And the other warlord, the one you're not killing, the one you're not focusing on, and the one that's running free on the battlefield, is enraging them back to full health and stats and damage. It's usually very easy to kill off one warlord thanks to the locations they spawn in, and the location will most likely be after the last wave. It's finding and killing the second one that's the challenge. Because, just in case you forgot, you are doing this with a berserker on your tail, and the shamans occasionally firing off a slowing AoE attack in your direction, just to make it more fun. And there's the trifling matter of the growing numbers of enemies. Now you'll notice that at this point I already killed both of the warlords, and that's the only reason why I'm still alive. Our trouble is still not at the end though, because those shamans can actually raise corpses at a pretty astonishing rate, and that's even discounting the skeletons they summon all on their own. At this point I'm simply resorting to use the katana, not because it's the best weapon to use against berserkers in general, but because it's the only thing that will keep me reasonably healthy while still killing something. With any other weapon I'd have to focus more on dodging than actually doing damage. And even here I get a couple of unlucky breaks when I happen to divide a shield jerk's shield, because that gives me no health back. Also, in a couple of seconds I'm going to get the ultimate shit has just hit the fan signal, because there's gonna be a small notice that the shamans have started resurrecting Haridans. Said notice taking the shape of a Haridan slashing me in the back. I'm really not sure how much the video conveys this, but this is, at this point, a really desperate battle, and pretty much nothing of what I'm doing here is affected by strategy or premeditation of any way. The rather vague plan is still to kill the berserker, which is preventing me from dealing with the other enemies in an efficient manner. However, I am all too painfully aware of the fact that the clock is ticking, since the enemies simply keep coming. Both shamans are still on the case. And then I get cornered. I'm going to be honest here, I have no fucking idea how I got off that one. At this point I was considering scrapping the run and trying to re-record one, which wouldn't be such a complete fucking failure, but then something magical happens. I decide to go out in style, whip out the rocket launcher, the first rocket misses, and... I admit I'm kind of proud of that shot. From now on, it's clean up. The shamans need to die before I get overwhelmed. But the thing that was preventing me from actually getting to them is now dead, so I can pretty much fight them at my leisure. Because I don't have the berserker constantly sapping me my health and wrecking my aim, so I can use the big guns. Now, depending on what they decide to resurrect, the fight is still on a timer, but the timer just got a lot more lenient. And hey, I've been saving rockets for this for the entire fucking game. A little notice here on what I'm doing wrong. Well, one of the many things I'm doing wrong in this fight, but if you use the 3 rocket burst, you pretty much want to use it with the laser guidance every time, because the 3 rockets actually have a fairly sized spread. That can cause as many as 3 of them to entirely miss the target. Even a target as big as a shaman. Thankfully, after a while, I finally remember that there are at least 2 demon hats lying around, and just go to town. Shield jerks look a lot less impressive when they start melting. And after that, it's pretty much just victory fireworks. We did it, folks. This is the hardest battle in the entire game. 4 waves of pure unfiltered death. And we have overcome. Feel free to burst into a revolutionary song of your choice. There's only one real way to finish this battle.
Zilla! I'm here! You have nowhere else to hide!
Come in.
So let's get some closure, shall we? There's bound to be an epic sword fight at the end of this. But I mean, we got 2 swords, he's got 1. What could possibly go wrong?
So this is it. The mongrel comes to bite the hand of its master one last time.
Face me, Zilla!
You pompous old poop! Fight like a man! And die like one!
I see you brought your little friend along. Tell me, little demon, how does it feel to be immortal?
Whatever Enra promised you, it's not going to happen! This is it. I've done it. I have the Nobitsura Kage! Woohoo! Oh, yes! Yes! I have it! I've done it! Ah!
It is accomplished. The Nobitsura Kage. I can barely look at it. We need to go.
Godzilla.
Godzilla, we don't have time. You promised me. There's a tear on the altar. Cut it. Come on.
And after a bit of a sneak peek on what the full Nobitsura Kage does, we're done. At least it wasn't a quick time event, right? Next time the finale.